very much. Thank you for the information. And I'll look forward to receiving the list that the Minister offered. I'm going to shift slightly, but not very far, into water. And the Minister had mentioned that the Water for Life line item was taken out and the entire budget was redistributed. And it was actually one of the questions that I had is, where is Water for Life? The Minister now tells me it's everywhere. If his support staff could be so kind as to give me a breakdown of where it went. We had an estimate of $18.9 million that was allocated to Water for Life, and the Minister mentioned it, and do you think I can find the notes I took on that now? No, oh, here we go. Sorry. Water for Life, $18.9 million. Okay, I was right about the numbers, and a total of $21 million cross-ministry. Okay, so that $18.9 million, can you give me the breakdowns of where it turns up in your line items that appear on page 142? That would be very helpful. I'm also I would be very interested in what in the Minister's opinion or in your analysis, what was achieved in reference to Water for Life, and therefore what's expected to be achieved in Water for Life. So what are the improvements? What are the tangible differences that have happened in the program? How has Water for Life improved water management in the province? And when I look at page 42 of the fiscal plan, and it talks about Water for Life, in addition to $190 million in capital supports, $25 million in operating support will be provided to continue implementation of Alberta's Water for Life strategy. So how will the $190 million in capital supports be used? How is it distributed? What specific projects are being required for the implementation of Water for Life? And how much of this is coming from the Department of Environment, and for the portion that, if it's not coming from Environment, then who is supplying it? And then I want to also talk to the Minister and have more of a discussion on what is happening with a new Water Act, or the whole question about the water allocations that exist now, the Fit-for system, the first in time, first in right, which for anybody listening at home or reading the Hansard, which I know everyone does, pays attention to every word, it essentially said the people who got there first have the allocation that is there. And that allocation is never 100% of the flow, obviously, but it is a certain allocation. The problem is that we now have a lot more people that need water, but only the sort of first group that got there, that first queue, have the licenses for those allocations. And I have always felt that we are under a different time and we need a different system, and that the government should move away from the Fit-for system. I'm sensing that the Minister doesn't agree with me, and I'm sure he will put that on the record. I think, and I'm most concerned because in the system he talks about with transferring, money gets involved. I understand that's the second 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
You have the last 20 minutes, so continue.
Thank you. I think we start to tiptoe into some really dangerous territory, and it is a slippery slope. I mean, we can look at what happened in Australia and Chile, and as they went to a water market system, essentially their water, they ended up privatizing their water and then having to buy it back. And I'm really interested in there's a couple of good questions that have been brought up to me, and one of them is, depending what we do with our water affects the rest of the world. So if we make certain choices about how we talk about our water or legislate our water, that may well give an opening to other countries to come in, and, for example, if they can buy land and get rights to water, allocation to water, or transfer to water, that they would then be able to do whatever they want with it, and we lose control of it, and the control goes to another country. And the concept of water being essentially a public trust, and that the government holds water in trust for the public, and is required to protect that, is something I would like to see the government move to. And to me, my reading of that does not include things like a water market, because it moves away from a public trust concept. Essentially, you want to make sure that everything that's done with water is in the broader public interest and does not make a choice that is primarily in a private interest or primarily benefits a private interest. And you know what? We had one of those before us, and with the Balzac race track, which didn't happen in the end, but the shopping mall certainly did. I mean, they were looking for water, and that was a private interest. So that's a perfect example of what can happen and did happen here. Now, because of the laws we had in place at the time, they ended up getting their water not from where they thought they would, but they were able to purchase a license or part of a license from an irrigation district to carry through with this. But that's the slippery slope that I'm looking out for. So I'd like the minister to talk more about when we're going to see that Water Act, because he dances pretty well when I answer that question. Pretty light on his feet. And I think it's important that we have a much clearer sense of when that's coming, just to be fair, because I've been the critic for this portfolio now this is my third budget, and I've been hearing the same answer around that Water Act. It's soon, and 3 years is a long time to be soon. So when is the Water Act coming? Is he going to go with some kind of transfer of license or transfer of allocation system? In other words, a water market. Is he going to choose a water market as the delivery system for this as we move forward? And also, is he planning on taking any kind of steps inside of a Water Act that would be more conscious of how water gets used? We've made some choices where we've done basin-to-basin water transfers in order to keep a settlement of people going, or even to allow them to increase their density. And the question that I look at that and say is, was that appropriate to allow that to continue? And we did. We enabled it to continue by transferring the water. Is that a sensible thing for a government to be allowing or encouraging, legislating to happen, given that they are holding water in public trust for everyone else? And things like crops that we decide to grow, given irrigation. Am I making everybody up there crazy? I think this is the most important discussion, aside from the monitoring issue, that the minister and I can have, because I think these two things are at the bottom of what's really going on around environmental stewardship. And there's a number of other ones like reclamation, the oil sands and things, but really if you don't have a clean glass of water, or you don't have enough water to grow food in a local area, see, this starts to roll on to a lot of things. I keep talking about recognizing that most Albertans live in urban settings, but that doesn't mean I don't care about what's happening outside of those. And I care very much, especially when we look at food security. And a big issue around food security is, can we grow enough food close to home that we're not transporting it, thousands of miles in a truck, which is burning gas and contributing to greenhouse gases? It all starts to go around at a certain point. So I'm going to sit down and let the minister try and answer the specific questions that I gave him, and try and give me some more information about when the Water Act is coming, what are some of the key things that he set in place around that, and then whether he has anticipated trying to actually shape and move our water use as part of that act.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. The member started her comments out by talking about Water for Life and referencing the fact that the Water for Life line item is no longer in the budget. I can give you the breakdown on where the funds are. There's about $1 million in ministry support services, $3 million in clean energy initiatives, $2 million in the approvals section of the budget. Water operations is another $2 million. Monitoring and reporting $1 million. Water policy $8.5 million. Relationships and partnerships $1 million, and policy innovation approximately $500,000. I also want to point out that in 9-10 we prepaid grants to the watershed, the WPACs, Watershed Public Advisory Councils, which amounts to about $4.5 million under the Water for Life program as well. The portion that I referred to, or a significant portion that I referred to, that is the Water for Life budget that is not within the ministry's budget but is instead in transportation, is available on transportation's website. I have a copy of the website here that shows the approvals approved up to June of 2010. It's Alberta Municipal Wastewater Partnership Regular Program Standalone Systems Projects approved up to June 2010. It's available on the website, and if you have trouble finding it, I'll certainly have someone provide you with a little bit more detail. Yes, well, what are the results of Water for Life? Well, Water for Life is an ongoing strategy. It's not complete of yet, but it is complete to the point where we feel that it has been ingratiated into the core business of what we do within the department, and that's the reason why it finds itself spread out throughout the department, because it really governs the way we do business. And to continue to have it as a standalone line item no longer makes sense, because it doesn't reflect what it is that we do. But I think that there's a couple areas that I could point to as being significant accomplishments of the Water for Life. One is the development of this strong partnerships that are there. Particularly in the development of WPACs around the province, and we just last week announced the development of yet another WPAC for the Peace River. So we've got these local community-based watershed councils now that are operating on virtually every major water basin throughout the province, that are helping us to make that kind of awareness at the community level, and to also help us to develop appropriate policy for protecting water along the way. We have seen significant adoption of water conservation initiatives. The Water for Life Partnership says that we should be increasing our water conservation initiatives by 30% by 2015, and we've seen significant progress in irrigation districts, in municipal governments, both rural and urban. AUMA is actively engaged with us, as is AMDMC, and we've also had a significant amount of success on the conservation side within industry, oil and gas and industry in particular. The discussion around water allocation, and the member asked, when are we going to bring in a Water Act? Well, I want to point out that we have a Water Act. We have a Water Act that is widely acknowledged as one of the best pieces of legislation in the world, and I'm told, I wasn't here at the time, well, I was in this House during part of the time, but I certainly wasn't minister, but the Water Act, under which we operate now, took from about 1991 to 1999, from the time that the discussions originally began until it was fully implemented. The discussions around legislation as it affects water, as the member has quite rightly pointed out, are very difficult, very emotional, and what one needs to tread lightly and make sure that you get it right. That's the process we're in right now. We're saying we have got excellent legislation. That legislation is serving us well, but there are areas where we have to have a look at whether or not it can serve us better, or whether changes to that legislation are necessary for it to serve us better. One of the things that is in the Water Act that has been there since 1999 is the separation of water licenses from land titles. Previously, water licenses were attached to land. You don't get access to water unless you acquire the land. In 1999, recognizing that the world had changed then, there was a separation of the water license from the land. There are instances where licenses that are attached to land for what various reasons are no longer relevant. The use of the land has changed, and so that water license becomes redundant. And so we put in place a process whereby licenses could be transferred from one holder to another. This is nothing new. This is nothing that has been introduced recently. What has heightened the attention and the focus on license transfers of late is the fact that the South Saskatchewan River Basin has been closed. And so once you have a closed basin, you can no longer come to the government and ask for a new water allocation, because there is no more water to allocate. And so now we're starting to see the more frequent use of the opportunities that are available within the Water Act to transfer licenses. But there are many, and I think the member even alluded to those kinds of speculations that allowing water licenses to be transferred somehow creates a commodity for water, commoditizes water, and removes any ability to continue to use water. And I categorically deny that that's the case. It is very, very clear that any license that is being contemplated for transfer from one user to another has to be able to demonstrate on both sides of the transaction. On the original holder side, that holder has to demonstrate how their actions have resulted in reduced need for that water, reduced use of that water. You can't simply transfer surplus water that you've never used. You have to say, we have taken specific action or will take specific action as a result of this transfer and the cash that we have from this transfer to reduce the need for water. That was the case in the Balzac situation that she talked about. The Western Irrigation District said, we will take money invested into our infrastructure. We will replace open irrigation ditches with underground pipes that will reduce the amount of evaporation, will beef up our storage capacity so that we better manage the water that's within. And so at the end of the day, we will be able to actually irrigate more acres than we did formerly, using less water. The water that is saved is transferred on the license transfer. Conversely, on the other side of the coin, someone who applies to receive one of these license transfers has to be able to demonstrate that they have there's reason to believe that they can use that water, that they have a demonstrated use for that water. We cannot and do not allow any transfers to take place for speculative reasons, for example. No one can acquire a license if they can't demonstrate how they're going to physically receive that water out of the diversion, and how they are going to use that water. So the suggestion somehow that someone could acquire a license and then ship it off to points unknown is simply not the case. Now, if someone puts a bottled water plant together and you have a soft drink manufacturing facility or something, some of that water probably ends up outside of the the water basin, but it is of an insignificant amount, and it's done as common practice everywhere, and not just in Alberta. But to suggest that someone could actually make wholesale transfers, interbasin transfers of water simply because they hold a license for that water is simply not the case. It is not the case in the Water Act, and it's never been the case in any of the discussion documents that we've been involved in. Now, the $1 million question, or maybe it's more than $1 million question. When is all of this going to happen? All of this is going to happen when we have an opportunity for the public, A, to engage in the discussion, and B, more importantly, to engage in a way that allows people to participate in that discussion of water from a knowledge base that allows the discussion to be based on fact and not hyperbole. I get very frustrated with a lot of the noise that is around the discussion of a water allocation policy, whether it be in the social networks or whether it be in newsletters or other places where people are suggesting that somehow the government has got this nefarious plan to deny Albertans the access to water that they need. Nothing could be further from the truth. Absolutely nothing. Nothing could be further from the truth when it comes to ensuring that we conserve water for the purpose of maintaining healthy aquatic ecosystems. That has to be the underlying premise for any kind of water allocation system that we would move towards. And so I can't answer that question. Frankly, I'm disappointed that we have not moved forward yet. But every time we start to get close to having that discussion, the furor whips up again. People get all excited, and no one has really got their minds focused on having a good, intelligent conversation around what are we going to do to accomplish two things or three things: conserve water for the ecosystem, preserve water for recreational and human use, and at the same time facilitate the transfers from existing users to new users that need to have access to that water because we have a growing economy.